This video is to help you with homework problems from section 1.1.3. The homework is 119 through 123. If you were watching the classwork video, you know I went through things fairly quickly because again, it was just meant to give you an overview of the material we covered. And you will find that with our homework with CPM, one or two questions will relate to that classwork and the remainder of those should be more of a review type question. So for 119, this is the question that relates to what we were doing in the classwork. So again, you may want to go back over and look that over in addition to pausing it if it goes too quickly. So they want you to look at the dot patterns in these parts. Assume that the pattern continues to increase by the same number of dots and in the same locations. Sketch the fourth and fifth figures and then predict how many are in the 100th figure. So if we look at figure 1 in section A, we see that we have the 3 dots with 1 to the right. Figure 2, we have a total of 5 dots, 2 to the right. Figure 3, 7 dots, 3 to the right. But another way to look at it is that we always have this 1 dot in the middle. And then coming off of that, we have 1 dot above, below, and to the right for figure 1, 2 dots above, below, and to the right for figure 2, 3 dots above, below, and to the right for figure 3. So that should help you to sketch the fourth and fifth figures, and it should also help you to predict how many dots would be in the 100th figure, because you'd have 1 dot, and then you'd have 100 dots above, 100 below, and 100 to the right for the 100th figure. Okay, so that's something that you want to, kind of look at that pattern in that way to help make it easier to sketch the fourth and the fifth and to figure out how many dots are in the 100th. Obviously, you're not drawing the 100th figure. For part B, figure 1 has 2 dots vertically. Figure 2 has 2 sets of 2 dots. Figure 3 has 3 sets of 2 dots. So in each case, the figure number tells you how many sets of 2 dots you have. Figure 1 has 1 set of 2 dots. Figure 2 has 2 sets of 2 dots. Figure 3 has 3 sets of 2 dots. So figure 4 should have 4 sets of 2 dots vertically. Figure 5 should have 5 sets of 2 dots vertically, and figure 100 should have 100 sets of 2 dots vertically. For 120, these questions should end up being a bit more of a review. So they tell you that the value of a decimal becomes clearer when the place value is spoken or written as the number it names. In other words, if you look at this number, it's more sensible to read it with correct place value, which is 1/10, rather than to read it as 0.1. Now, sometimes we will read it as 0.1 for the purpose of having you correct something, so it's real clear what you're looking for in your notebook. But in terms of actual reading it correctly with place value, this is not read as 0.1, it's read as 1/10. Sometimes students will read it as 0 and 1/10, and that's okay as well. So therefore, you need to write these ones down using the correct place value. All right. So I will just look at this one for you and this one for you. So what you have here is nothing, of course, in the ones place. And whenever you have a decimal point, if there is something in front of the decimal point, you're going to read that decimal point as the word and. But in this case, we don't have to worry about it because it's just a 0 in front of the decimal point. So instead, we're just focusing on what's behind the decimal point, which is the number 56. So you would write it as, or read it as, 56. And then you say to yourself, all right, what place value is the 6 landing in? Meaning the last digit is in what place value? Well, right behind the decimal point is the tenths. Behind that is the hundredths. So the 6 from 56 is landing in the hundredths place. So we read it as 56 hundredths. So that number is read as 56 hundredths. For the fourth one here, we do have a number other than 0 in front of the decimal point. So we start by writing that. So 2. And then when we see a decimal point, we write the word and. And then we look at the number behind the decimal point, which is just 8. I mean, it's 008, but really it's just the number 8. So it's 2 and 8. And then the question is, again, what place value is that last digit landing in? Well, here's tenths, hundredths, third place behind is thousandths. So 2 and 8 thousandths is how you would say that number. 2 and 8 thousandths. Okay. Then they want you to go the other way. If you see the number 35 hundredths, how would you write it as a decimal? If you see the number 3 and 2 tenths, how do you write that as a decimal? And if you see the number 6 hundredths, how do you write that as a decimal? So hopefully these examples will help you with that. Excuse me. For 121, you're going to find the perimeter of these figures. They tell you that the markings that you see here mean parallel. Okay, so when you see the arrow like that, means those two sides are parallel. So the markings on section E, this one right here, these markings mean the same length or congruent. So what they want you to do is find the perimeter. Remember, perimeter is the distance around the shape. So the rim. So you're looking, for example, on this rectangle of taking the 8 plus the 3 plus the 8 plus the 3, because we know in a rectangle, opposite sides are congruent. All right, for the second one here, it would be a trapezoid, but still you're just adding up the outside edges. For the right triangle, adding up the outside edges. All right, and then for 122, you're going to go back to these shapes and choose a label that best describes them. In other words, this is a triangle, but it's also a right triangle because it has this right angle in the corner. Okay, this is a four-sided figure, so it's a quadrilateral. It's also a parallelogram because opposite sides are parallel, but it also has all congruent sides. So it's even more specific than that. There's a term for parallelograms that have all congruent sides. And again, they remind you that in the glossary of the book, you can find those definitions if you've forgotten them. For 123, you are going to be reading the data from the bar graph and answering the questions. That's it. Good luck to you. Thank you.